The sun had barely risen above the rust-red rooftops of Lusaka when the city began to breathe its usual rhythm. Taxi horns blared in the distance, women shouted prices of vegetables in the market, and young men moved with hurried steps, chasing opportunities like shadows that slipped between their fingers. The dust from yesterday's traffic still clung to the air, and in the narrow streets, children played barefoot, chasing old tires with sticks, laughing as though the world had never known hunger. Among this daily chaos, a man appeared, dressed in ragged trousers, his shirt torn in places, his beard thick with dust, and his eyes heavy with exhaustion. He limped slowly, dragging one leg as though pain coursed through his bones. People glanced at him, shook their heads, and walked on. Some thought he was just another drunk, a street dweller who had wasted his youth on beer and bad choices. Others muttered under their breath, these beggars always pretending. The man fell near the edge of the busy road, his body landing awkwardly as if life had completely drained from him. For a moment, silence swallowed that corner of the street. But when he groaned and stretched out a trembling hand, the silence broke with murmurs. A woman carrying cassava on her head spat on the ground and said, "He is faking. If he can cry like that, he can stand. Let him suffer." Another man in a clean suit, clutching a briefcase, shook his head and muttered, "I have no time for such things. People will drain you if you allow them." And with that, he hurried across the street. Buses slowed, passengers peered through windows, and vendors paused only for a second before returning to their shouting. Life in the city did not stop for one broken man. But from a corner where the scent of dried fish lingered, a young woman approached. She was not dressed in luxury. Her faded kitenge skirt had patches, her blouse was old, and her slippers were worn thin at the soles. Her name was Chikondi, a name her mother once whispered with pride, meaning love in her mother's tongue. She carried a basket half filled with groundnuts and mangoes to sell by the roadside. Chikondi was poor, so poor that most evenings her family's dinner was nothing more than saima with a little salt. Her younger brothers often cried from hunger, and her mother's health had weakened from years of carrying heavy loads in the market. Yet, despite the weight of her struggles, Chikondi's heart was larger than her stomach's emptiness. When she saw the man on the ground, something inside her would not allow her to pass. She dropped her basket beside him and knelt. "Baba, are you okay? Can you hear me?" Her voice was soft but steady. The man groaned again. Water, his lips cracked like dry earth in a drought. Chikondi looked around, but no one offered help. Some stood nearby, watching with the eyes of spectators in a drama they refused to join. She quickly reached into her basket, pulled out the small bottle of water she carried for herself, and lifted his head gently. She let him sip. He coughed, but then swallowed slowly. "Why are you here like this?" she asked. The man closed his eyes and whispered, "I have no family, no food. I am tired." Chikondi sighed. Her own hunger gnawed at her belly, but she tore a piece of mango from her basket and offered it. He ate slowly, as though each bite was both painful and precious. She stayed with him, fanning him with a piece of cardboard she found nearby. People passing shook their heads. "That girl is wasting her time," one woman said. But Chikondi did not care. Hours passed, the sun climbed higher, and she remained beside him. What she did not know, what the entire street did not know, was that this ragged man was no ordinary beggar. His name was Kato, and he was one of the richest men in the country. Owner of factories, farms, and transport companies. His face was rarely seen in public. Business magazines carried his name, but few knew what he truly looked like because he avoided cameras. He had come to the streets disguised, searching for one thing, to see if compassion still existed in a world where money had blinded hearts. Kato's advisors had told him, "No one will help you. People are selfish." But he wanted to believe there was still goodness among the poor. And here, under the burning African sun, he found Chikondi, the only one who stopped. As evening approached, Chikondi's mother's voice echoed in her mind, "Do not stay too long outside, my daughter. Darkness hides many dangers." She knew she had to leave, but she could not abandon the man. She tugged at his arm. Baba, come, let me take you to my home. You cannot sleep on the street. You will die. Cato opened his eyes, pretending weakness. I will be a burden. You are already a burden, Chikandi said with a tired laugh. But life is heavier when we carry it alone. If I leave you here, tomorrow they will find your body. Come. With effort, she helped him stand. His weight pressed against her small shoulders, but she dragged him slowly through the narrow lanes until they reached her home, a small clay house with a leaking roof and a broken door. Inside, her mother coughed from her mat, and her two brothers sat with empty plates, waiting for food that had not come. Mama, Chikandi said, this man was sick on the road. I could not leave him. Her mother frowned. Chikandi, we cannot even feed ourselves. And now you bring another mouth. I know, Mama. But God will not forget us if we remember others. The mother looked at her daughter, sighed, and shook her head. Your heart is too big, my child. That night, Chikandi cooked the little maize flour they had left. She mixed it with water, stirred it into nsaima, and shared it among them. Cato watched silently as this family, who had nothing, gave him half of their portion. He swallowed with difficulty, not because the food was hard, but because emotion tightened his throat. Later, as the moon rose above the rooftops, Cato lay on the floor. Chikandi covered him with the only blanket they had, then slept beside her brothers. Her mother's coughs echoed through the night. Cato closed his eyes, but his heart was awake. He thought of his mansion on the hill, where tonight his dining table would be filled with roasted goat, rice, plantains, and wine. He thought of his bed, soft as clouds, waiting for him in silence. But here, on the hard floor of this clay house, he felt something stronger than luxury. He felt love, the kind that asked for nothing in return. Morning came. Chikandi rose early, washed her face in a small basin of cold water, tied her kaitenj tightly, and prepared her basket again. Before she left, she said, Baba, stay here and rest. I will sell and bring more food. Cato nodded weakly, still playing his role. At the market, Chikandi's day was long. Some customers bargained harshly, offering half the price for her groundnuts. Others insulted her for being too poor. Yet, she smiled, endured, and sold until her basket was lighter. By evening, she returned home with a little money and a few vegetables. She found Cato sitting outside, watching the children play in the dust. You should not be out in the sun, she said. I wanted to feel life, he replied softly. Her brothers laughed and ran circles around him, asking questions. Uncle, what is your name? Where do you come from? Cato smiled faintly. I am just a traveler who lost his way. The days turned into weeks. Chikandi cared for him, shared her food, and treated him like family. Slowly, he pretended to regain strength, helping with small tasks, fetching water, fixing the leaking roof, telling stories at night. He listened to their struggles, how her mother once dreamed of sending Chikandi to school, how poverty had killed that dream, how her brothers wished for shoes so they would not cut their feet on stones. One night, under the stars, Chikandi spoke with a sadness that hung heavy in her voice. Sometimes I wonder if the world only respects those with money. If you are poor, people see you as dirt. They do not care if you live or die. But I believe one day, kindness will open a door for me. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day. Cato looked at her, his heart stirring. He wanted to tell her the truth, to reveal that the door she dreamed of had already opened. But he remained silent, knowing the test was not yet complete. Weeks passed, and the once weak man whom Chikandi had carried from the dust of the street was now standing taller, his steps no longer dragging. He still dressed in ragged clothes, but there was a new strength in his eyes that no one noticed except her mother. One evening, after supper, her mother leaned close to her and whispered, My daughter, that man, he does not look like a beggar anymore. His eyes, they are eyes of someone who has known power. Be careful. Chikandi shook her head. Mama, he was broken when I found him. Do not let your suspicion kill the little kindness we have left. Her mother sighed, but said no more. The city outside their little home roared with its usual heartbeat, vendors shouting the prices of dried fish, children singing local songs as they skipped ropes, men arguing about football near small bars where beer foamed in old bottles. But within the clay house, a quiet story was being written, one that none of their neighbors would ever believe if they knew. Cato was learning more about poverty than he had ever known in his rich world. He had grown up with privilege, never once sleeping on a mat or counting coins to buy a tomato. Now, every day in Chikandi's home showed him a reality he had only heard about in reports from his company managers. Her brothers asked him, "Uncle, why do you not have family?" He answered with half-truths. Life took them away. Sometimes wealth is not gold or cows. Sometimes wealth is only the heart that beats. The boys nodded, not fully understanding. But Cato's heart was no longer untouched. He saw how Chikandi woke at dawn, walked barefoot to fetch water, and still found time to braid her little brother's hair before running to the market. He saw her laugh despite hunger, dance to old songs played on broken radios, and wipe her mother's forehead when fever came. Every act was a sermon to him. That true richness was not in land titles or bank accounts, but in love freely given. Yet outside this small house, whispers began. Neighbors started noticing the strange man who never begged yet stayed in their home. Women at the market muttered, "That girl has brought a man into her house. Who knows who he is? Maybe a thief." Others sneered, "She is wasting her youth on a useless wanderer." One man in particular, Mwansa, carried a dangerous jealousy. Mwansa was a known hustler, handsome, smooth-talking, and often found gambling under the mango tree with his friends. He had once pursued Chikandi, but she rejected him, saying, "Your life is smoke, Mwansa. It rises and disappears. I cannot follow you." Since then, bitterness burned in him. Seeing her care for the strange man fueled his anger. "She thinks she is better than us? That girl must be taught a lesson," he muttered. One afternoon, Mwansa followed Cato secretly as he walked to the outskirts of the market. To his shock, he saw Cato slip into a black car waiting quietly behind the shops. Inside, a man in a suit handed him a small package. Cato took it, spoke briefly, and returned to the village side streets. Mwansa's eyes widened. "Ah, so the beggar is not truly a beggar. Something is hidden here." He hurried back and spread rumors. "That man in Chikandi's house, he is not poor. I saw him with men in suits. He is either a thief hiding from police or some witchcraft man." The rumors grew wings. By evening, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. Chikandi's mother confronted Cato. "Tell me, who are you really? My daughter defends you, but I cannot keep silent. People are talking." Cato bowed his head. He could not yet reveal his full truth. "Mama, I am not a thief. I am not a witch. But I am searching for something the world has forgotten. Please give me a little more time." The old woman studied him, her sharp eyes piercing. Finally, she nodded. "Time will tell. But know this. If you harm my daughter, poverty will not protect you from my curse." That night, Chikandi found him sitting outside, staring at the stars. She sat beside him. "Why do you always look at the sky?" she asked. Cato smiled faintly. "Because the sky is the same for the rich and the poor. When I look up, I know money cannot buy another star. We are all small beneath it." Chikandi's heart softened. She said quietly, "If you have secrets, I do not need to know them. All I ask is that you never betray the kindness we gave you. For us, trust is heavier than gold." Her words pierced him deeply. He wanted to tell her, "I am not just a wanderer. I am the man who owns the factories where you beg to sell your groundnuts. I am the one whose wealth could erase your hunger in a single day." But he stayed silent. His test was not finished. Days later, betrayal came from the shadows. Mwansa, still boiling with envy, devised a cruel plan. He gathered 2 friends and decided to expose Cato. Late at night, they broke into Chikandi's house, shouting, "Thief! Thief! We have caught him." They dragged Cato outside, beating him. Neighbors poured out, their voices rising in chaos. "We told you. That man was trouble." Chikandi screamed, trying to pull them off.
Stop.
He is not a thief. But the men laughed. Mwansa shouted, then why does he meet men in suits? Why does he hide things? He is planning something against us. The crowd, hungry for drama, began to side with Mwansa. Some picked up stones. Fear gripped Chikandi's chest. She threw herself in front of Kato, spreading her arms wide. If you touch him, you will have to kill me first. Her mother cried from the doorway, coughing violently. Leave him alone. He is under my roof. You cannot take him without proof. The mob hesitated. The respect for elders in their culture still carried weight. But Mwansa sneered, pointing at Kato. One day you will regret sheltering this man. He will destroy you all. With that, they left, muttering threats. Kato sat on the ground, bruised but silent. Chikandi knelt beside him, tears running down her dusty cheeks. Why will you not speak? Why will you not tell them who you are? Kato looked at her, his eyes burning with secrets. Because sometimes truth must wait. If I reveal myself now, their hearts will never be seen clearly. But tonight you have shown me more than I ever hoped to find. She held his hand, trembling. You are hiding something. But listen to me. Poverty has taught me to read hearts, not pockets. Your heart, it is not evil. That is enough for me. For the first time in years, Kato felt tears on his face. He turned his head so she would not see. The next morning, quietly, he left the house before dawn. He walked through the streets until he reached the hills where his mansion stood hidden behind iron gates. His guards straightened immediately when they saw him, bowing. Sir, welcome back. Inside, his advisors rushed to him. We feared for your life, Mr. Kato. Did the test succeed? Kato raised his hand. It is not yet finished. But I have found one who gave me water when the world refused. One who gave me bread though her own stomach was empty. She will not remain in the dust forever. Prepare. Back in the clay house, Chikandi woke to find him gone. Panic surged through her chest. She searched the market, the streets, the fields, but he was nowhere. Her neighbors laughed. We told you. He was a liar. He has left you. Her heart sank, but deep inside, something whispered. No. He is not gone. He is preparing. That night, as she sat outside under the faint glow of a kerosene lamp, Mwansa appeared again, smug. You see? The man has left you. You should have chosen me, Chikandi. I could have given you protection. Chikandi stood, her eyes burning. Mwansa, protection that comes from lies is poison. Leave me. He scowled. One day you will crawl to me, begging. She turned away, refusing to give him her tears. But far above, in the mansion on the hill, Kato looked down at the flickering lights of the slum where Chikandi lived. His decision was already made. The girl who had once knelt to give him water on the street would one day rise higher than even she could imagine. The morning after Kato's disappearance stretched into days, and each day into weeks. Chikandi's heart carried a wound she could not show. At the market, she sat quietly behind her basket, her laughter gone, her voice heavy. Her mother noticed, but only said, Life is a river, my daughter. Sometimes it carries people to us, sometimes it carries them away. But Chikandi's spirit whispered otherwise. She could not explain it, but something told her the man she sheltered was not gone forever. Meanwhile, whispers continued among the neighbors. Mwansa fueled them with his sharp tongue. Did I not tell you? That stranger was playing her. He has left, maybe after stealing something from them. These poor fools are easy prey. Though no one had proof, suspicion clung to Chikandi like a shadow. Some customers avoided her at the market, muttering, That is the girl who housed the thief. Her sales grew worse, and hunger dug its teeth deeper into their home. But one evening, as the sun bled red across the sky and the call of drums echoed from a nearby celebration, the ground beneath their lives began to shift. From the main road, 3 sleek black cars appeared, rolling slowly through the dust like lions entering a village. Their polished surfaces reflected the setting sun, and their tinted windows hid faces. Children stopped playing, men paused their conversations, and women adjusted their wrappers to watch. In this neighborhood, cars of such wealth were like spirits, seen rarely, spoken of often. The cars stopped right outside Chikandi's clay house. Doors opened, and men in dark suits stepped out. Their shoes shone, their watches glinted. The neighbors gasped. "Who are they coming for?" someone whispered. Chikandi, who had been washing vegetables in a small basin, froze. Her mother clutched her chest, coughing. The brothers hid behind her skirt. Then, from the middle car, Kato stepped out. No longer ragged, no longer weak. His beard was trimmed, his clothes sharp and tailored. He looked taller, heavier with presence. The crowd murmured in shock. That man. The beggar. No, it cannot be. It is him. Kato walked forward, his gaze fixed on Chikandi. She stood trembling, unable to speak. "Chikandi," he said softly, his voice carrying through the stunned silence. "I told you I was searching for something the world had forgotten. I have found it. I have found you." Gasps rippled. Her mother nearly dropped to her knees. Mwansa, who had just arrived from the gambling den, froze in disbelief. Kato turned to the crowd. "Listen to me. The man you saw weak and hungry on your streets was no thief, no madman. I am Kato Ntemba, owner of the factories that give work to your cousins, the transport company that brings food to your markets, the farms that feed cities beyond this one." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. No one moved. No one breathed. He continued, his voice deep and commanding. "I came here not as a king but as a beggar, to see if kindness still lived in the hearts of my people. Most of you turned away. Some mocked me. But this girl, this poor girl with nothing but a basket of groundnuts, she gave me water, food, and shelter. She shared her last piece of bread when she herself was hungry." All eyes turned to Chikandi. Her knees trembled, her lips parted, but no words came. Kato's face softened. "From today, she will never know hunger again. From today, she will walk with me, not as a servant, but as the queen of my empire." The crowd exploded with murmurs. Some clapped in disbelief, others whispered with jealousy. Mwansa's jaw clenched, fury burning in his veins. Chikandi's mother collapsed into tears, half from joy, half from shock. My daughter, my daughter." But Chikandi, still shaking, whispered, "Why me?" Kato stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she heard. "Because when the world turned its back, you knelt. Because when you had nothing, you gave. Because your heart is richer than all my wealth." Tears rolled down her cheeks, and for a moment, the entire slum seemed to hold its breath. That night, the cars carried them away. Chikandi sat by the window, watching her clay home grow smaller in the distance, her heart torn between fear and hope. Her mother and brothers were also taken into the convoy, their eyes wide with awe. When the cars climbed the hill and passed through the iron gates of Kato's estate, Chikandi gasped. The mansion stood like a palace, with tall pillars, wide gardens, fountains that danced in the moonlight, and lights brighter than she had ever imagined. Her brothers screamed with joy, running through the grass barefoot. Her mother wept quietly, touching the polished walls as if to confirm they were real. Kato guided Chikandi inside. The floor shone like mirrors, chandeliers glittered, and servants bowed. For a moment, she felt dizzy, as though she had stepped into a dream too fragile to last. "From today," Kato said, "this is your home." But dreams, even sweet ones, carry shadows. Not everyone welcomed her. Some of Kato's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. One whispered, "Sir, is this wise? She is poor, uneducated from the slums. The empire needs strategy, not charity." Kato silenced them with a glance. "She gave me life when you all advised me to test and abandon. She is not charity. She is my choice." But whispers spread. Servants questioned, "How can a village girl walk these halls?" Business partners gossiped, "What spell has she cast on him?" And deep in the slum, Mwansa fumed. How can it be? That girl, queen of his empire? No. She is mine to destroy. Envy burned hotter than fire in him. He gathered his friends, promising, "We will expose her. She cannot rise while I crawl." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Chikandi struggled with the new world. She had never sat at a long dining table filled with roasted meats, golden rice, sweet fruits, and wine. She had never worn silk or walked on marble floors. She stumbled, made mistakes, and felt the sharp eyes of the servants who judged her every move. One evening, during a grand dinner, a wealthy guest asked her with a mocking smile, "Tell us, my queen, what business do you run? What languages do you speak? What schools did you attend?" The laughter around the table was polite but cutting. Chikandi lowered her eyes, her hands trembling. For a moment, shame threatened to drown her. But then she remembered her mother's voice. "Do not let the world measure your worth in coins or classrooms. Your value is in your truth." She lifted her head and answered, her voice steady. "I may not have your schools. I may not know your languages. But I know hunger. I know pain. I know how to survive when the world forgets you. And when the man you all respect was on the ground, I was the one who lifted him. If that is not wealth, then perhaps you do not know what wealth means." Silence fell. Cato smiled with pride, and for the first time, some of the guests looked at her not with mockery, but with respect. But envy never sleeps. Mwansa's plan was already moving. He bribed one of the mansion's guards, promising him money if he would slip him inside. One stormy night, while thunder shook the windows and rain washed the gardens, Mwansa crept into the estate. His goal was simple: to humiliate Chikandi, to create scandal, to show the world she was unworthy of Cato's empire. He found her in the library alone, reading slowly from a book she barely understood. He smirked. "So this is where the queen hides." Chikandi gasped, standing quickly. "Mwansa, how did you?" He stepped closer, his smile cruel. "You think you can rise above us? You think you are better than me? I will drag you back to the dust where you belong." But before he could act, Cato entered, flanked by guards. His voice thundered louder than the storm. "Mwansa." Mwansa froze, fear flickering across his face. Cato's eyes burned with fire. "You mocked me on the streets. You tried to kill me with your lies. And now you dare come here? You will learn what it means to challenge destiny." Guards seized Mwansa, dragging him struggling to the floor. Chikandi trembled, clutching her chest. "Do not kill him," she whispered. Cato turned to her in surprise. "Let him live," she said softly. "If you kill him, you become like him. Let him see with his own eyes that no amount of envy can erase kindness." For a moment, silence. Then Cato nodded slowly. "Release him." Mwansa was thrown into the rain outside, humiliated but alive. As the thunder rolled, Cato looked at Chikandi with awe. "You are stronger than I thought. Stronger than me." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. "No, I am only a girl who once sold groundnuts. But perhaps kindness is the only crown I know how to wear." And in that moment, though storms raged outside, a new fire burned within the mansion, the beginning of her reign, not just as the queen of his empire, but as the queen of hearts. The day of the coronation arrived, and the entire city seemed to vibrate with anticipation. From the glittering skyscrapers in the financial district to the dusty corners of the markets in the old neighborhoods, everyone spoke of the same thing. The young woman who had once walked barefoot through village paths would now be crowned the queen of an empire. Musicians lined the streets, their drums sending thunderous beats into the sky, and dancers in colorful Kent cloths whirled, as if they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Yet behind the grandeur, the young woman stood in her chamber, staring at her reflection in a tall mirror framed with gold. The gown she wore shimmered with beads that had been hand-sewn by women from her home village, the very women who had once watched her toil under the sun. The fabric told a story, patterns of maize, rivers, and the rising sun, symbols of hope and sustenance. But her heart was heavier than the crown waiting to be placed upon her head. She thought of her mother, whose hands had grown calloused from years of pounding yam, and her father, whose back had bent under the weight of endless farm work. They were gone now, claimed by illness and hardship, and though she had risen beyond poverty, a part of her still carried the silence of those graves. The billionaire entered the room quietly, his eyes softer than the first time she had seen him lying on the street pretending to be broken. He looked at her as though he could see through the jewels, past the silk, straight into the girl who had knelt in the dust to help a stranger. "Today, the world will know who you are," he said. She turned, and for a moment, the strength in her faltered. "What if I am not ready?" she whispered. He stepped closer, placing his hand gently on hers. "You were ready the moment you chose kindness when you had nothing. Power does not make a queen, character does. And you already have what this world needs." The ceremony began with songs of the ancestors. Elders from distant villages arrived, draped in white, carrying staffs carved with the faces of spirits. Young men beat the talking drums, their rhythms echoing the voices of long-dead kings. When she walked out, the crowd erupted, yet she saw more than faces. She saw stories. The woman who had once sold her roasted maize by the roadside waved at her with tears. The boy who had begged beside her in the market clapped his hands with joy. For them, she was not a queen born of wealth but of resilience. But not everyone celebrated. Among the guests stood a rival tycoon, a man whose empire was built on broken backs and corruption. His smile carried venom, and his eyes narrowed as the crown was lowered onto her head. He had tried to ruin the billionaire before, and now he plotted again. He whispered to his allies, promising that no poor girl would ever hold power over him. The queen, however, had learned enough of betrayal and revenge. She had already prepared herself. Her speech, when it came, was not of wealth or riches but of justice. "I was once invisible," she declared, her voice strong enough to silence the crowd. "Ignored because I was poor, dismissed because I was a girl. But today I stand not for myself, but for all those who are unseen. Our empire will not be built on greed, but on fairness. No child will go to bed hungry while we feast. No laborer will sweat without reward. This is not just my crown, it belongs to all who dared to dream." Tears filled the eyes of market women. Men who had doubted her bowed their heads. Even the skeptical elders felt the truth in her words. For the first time, hope was not just a rumor whispered in the wind. It was alive, standing before them. The rival tycoon clenched his fists, but he could not stop the tide. Later that evening, under the stars, the billionaire found her standing on the palace balcony. The city below glittered like a necklace of lights. He placed his arm around her shoulders. "You have changed everything," he said. She smiled faintly. "No," she replied. "We have changed everything. Together." And for the first time, she allowed herself to feel not only the weight of her past but the beauty of her present. She had been the girl who lifted a stranger. Now she was the queen who lifted a people. And though trials would surely come, betrayal, greed, envy, she knew she would face them with the same heart that had carried her through dust, hunger, and tears. Because a true queen was not made by gold or crowns, but by the courage to love when the world gave her nothing. The drums played deep into the night. Fireworks lit the sky. And in the hearts of those who had once despaired, a new rhythm was born, one of hope, one of faith, one that would echo for generations.